Aloha! What are the magic words that can transform your life? We're going to be talking about ancient Hawaiian wisdom today with two amazing people from the Big Island of Hawaii. Stay tuned. It's a special pre-Halloween episode of Books Cafe, sponsored by free-ebooks.net. I'm your host, Scott Patton, and welcome. Really excited to have you with us today. I'm very excited about our guests. They come from the Big Island of Hawaii, and they first met at an Easter party, and they realized with their backgrounds and what they've been doing that they were an amazing fit. One is an ordained minister, a Reiki Master teacher. He's a spiritual life coach, speaker, and author of the book we're going to be talking about today. The other attained a BA from Northeastern Illinois University, specializing in substance abuse counseling for women and at-risk youth. She's a spiritual life coach, writer, speaker. She earned an aesthetic degree in the I should have read this more closely before. Aveda Institute, and practices a type of Buddhism that I don't even want to try to say. We'll ask her how you say it. And in 2009, she was introduced to a very special ancient Hawaiian process that we're going to be talking about. So with that, I want to welcome to the show Jon and Laura Lovgren. How are you doing today?
Doing awesome. Thank you. How are you?
Great. So you have an amazing book, The Magic Steps, The Magic Words, and the 12 Steps. We are all recovering from something, and I think that is so true. And tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, it started with The Magic Words I published a couple of years ago, just to explain Ho'oponopono at its deepest levels. A lot of people say, it can't work, it's too simple. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. It's just too simple for it to work. But when we understand how neuroplasticity works within the brain, and when we continue to repeat phrases or mantras, whatever you want to call them, it strengthens that love, humility, compassion, and gratitude within the brain. And then our lower vibration, anger, fear, frustration, those neurons start to fade away and dissipate. And so it allows us to identify the things that are holding us back. And so that has been out a couple of years, is doing okay, and people are starting to understand it better. And then Laura and I came together. We both come from Alcoholics Anonymous program. We've been in the program, or been sober, I should say, 26, 27 years. So we both remembered when we came into the program, when we first read the big book, we're like, dude, this should be a life guide for everybody. Why is it just for alcoholics? And so in that vein, when we applied Ho'oponopono to our 12-step program, our lives just transformed almost overnight. So it seemed. And we just wanted to bring that message to other people that are struggling with any kind of ailments like that. And also, if we take the alcohol out of it, the 12 steps apply across the board for any lifestyle, you might say. And so we wanted to bring the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous into the mainstream.
Oh, awesome. So, go ahead.
Did that answer your question?
Laura, do you want to, I was going to say, Laura, do you want to add something to that?
Oh, he's got the bases covered. He does. We had an epiphany one day, and a realization came to us that what we've been practicing and utilizing in our lives on a daily basis, it was applying to every step, being in recovery.
Right.
And we figured this could be utilized, we've realized this a long time ago. It could be utilized by anybody, but incorporating the Ho'oponopono into that, it makes a transformation that's unexplainable.
That's wonderful. As soon as you started talking, Chloe here, who's ignored me all day. Say hi. Hi.
Um,
Will not let me alone. She's patting me on my shin and she's purring up against me. So this is what we're doing. Say hi. No, I don't want to be on camera. I'm camera shy.
Here's our little one.
Oh, wow. Good thing she's not watching the screen right now. Or she
Yeah,
wow.
5 weeks old.
5 weeks old.
And his
Oh,
name is
yes.
Pono.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and we also have found that, I don't know if you've heard of the 4 agreements,
Yes.
Don Miguel Ruiz. So when we apply the 4 agreements, that also is a very powerful combination. You know, and so what we found with Ho'oponopono
it
is
works.
it works. And using it with the 12 steps, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the 12-step program, but step 4 is taking a personal inventory. And in the 12-step programs across the board, pretty much everybody dreads coming up to that step because we have to go look at our skeletons in our closet, so to speak.
Right.
And when we add Ho'oponopono to that process, then it becomes a treasure hunt, right? We don't fear it because we want to go find out what those are.
But because you can't heal something if you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
So in doing that 4th step, it's helping to uncover, discover, and then we're able to discard what no longer serves us.
Right.
And we can stop those messages, those recurring messages from, we were raised with things that are so ingrained in us. When we become aware of them, we can make those changes.
And I want to emphasize what you just said, Laura, because we have behaviors that just come out. I have behaviors that come out and I go like, where did that come from? And I have one in particular, and for the first time about 2 years ago, I saw my mom do it. And I thought, oh, I never noticed before, but she taught me that behavior at some point, right? It was just like, oh, cool. I know where that came, and all the, kind of the negative part. I mean, when the behavior is not like cured or gone away or anything, but when it pops up before it's expressed, I go, no, I made a decision that I wasn't going to do this behavior. And
exactly.
You're not subconscious anymore. It's, I'm aware of you, and you're like whack-a-mole, right? Pops up.
Yes.
Thank you very much. But we decided a different way of handling this situation, right?
Right.
A lot of those happen in traffic to us too.
Yeah.
In traffic, yeah.
So you know why your mom's so good at pushing your buttons, right? Now you know.
Now I
she
know.
installed them.
Well, you reminded me. Well, off we go on tangents and stories. I was leaving church, and I must have been in like my 30s, and my parents were visiting. And so, of course, it's my church. I go there. They're visiting. They never go there. And so my dad starts talking to the minister. And immediately I'm 4 years old, 5 years old, right? Like the way my dad is talking to this minister. And the minister looks at my dad, looks at me and says, "Don't worry about it, Scott. It happens to all of us." But, our parents treat us a certain way, and they don't necessarily treat us differently as we grow up. And my dad was, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was having a lot of fun at my expense.
I mean, they treat us the way they were treated growing up.
That's
it.
Kind That's
of
another.
I think what we see in other people and ourselves as well is, it's like we grow up and we learn all these traits, whatever they are, and it's just the way it's always been done, kind of thing. And in with alcoholism or any of the kind of ailments that come up like that, how do we break that cycle within the family, within the, so that we don't pass it down to our children? Because that's what has happened over the years, is it just keeps getting passed on because we don't know any better. And now we do.
For many, many generations, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My dad talked off.
She reminded me, you can't change anyone else. You can only
Right.
change yourself. Others you can only love. But that's what Ho'oponopono is about. It's for yourself.
Yeah, let's dive into Ho'oponopono in a little deeper. Where did it start? I'm assuming it's kahunas in Hawaii that brought it forth, or had it and then
Yeah,
hid it.
It's essentially a Hawaiian lifestyle, and they just live it. And we have a number of Hawaiian friends, and I've been in situations before where we've had some disagreements. And one in particular, I was like, you know what, I'm done going around in circles. And I started to leave, and they said, oh no, you're not going anywhere. We need to finish this. We need to get Pono, get right with each other. And sure enough, I hung around and I said, okay, Hawaiians don't practice Ho'oponopono in the way that we do with I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. It's kind of inherent in their culture. Morna Simeona was a lapa'au, a healer. And in 1976, she went through a process and came up with what it is today. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And understanding that it's always and only to self and never ever about anyone or anything else.
Right.
And so it teaches us, right, to take full responsibility, that each one of us is 100% responsible for our lives. And so when we take blame out of the picture, we start changing how we think and react and respond. Does that answer it?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, John.
Okay.
And you reminded me of, I'm assuming it's a true story, but I don't know. It was a story I heard a long time ago. And this has to do with taking full responsibility, right? Is they were wondering why people got robbed, right? So they just like, there's 100 people or 1,000 people running through a subway station, and 4 of them get robbed. Like, why those 4 was kind of their question. So they took a whole bunch of pictures of crowds, and then they got a whole bunch of robbers together and said, who would you rob? And they all picked the same people. It's like,
from photographs, huh?
From photographs. Now, these weren't necessarily people that were robbed. It was
right.
In this picture, who would you rob? To that person. And they were almost all in agreement as to who they would rob. So they're like, why are you all pick? And of course, the robbers don't know. They just, it's not conscious in their mind. It's just, that's the victim, right? And these people, generally speaking, were hunched over. They were, it was almost like they had a sign saying, rob me. And I just thought that was really, I'm the victim. My job is to be robbed. So come and get me.
Pretty much, it's probably, if you were to dig in a little deeper, it's probably the fear. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to get robbed. I hope I don't get robbed. I hope I don't get robbed.
Right.
I'm probably going to get robbed, and I think it's
get it over with.
You're creating that for yourself.
Chapter 5 in the magic words, I think it's 5. Anyway, it talks about the law of attraction and how that happens. And it comes from what in Hawaiian they refer to as our iniipili, which is our unconscious. And so that's always putting out what is most predominant in our minds, right? And so if we're always thinking, I'm going to get robbed, I'll help I don't get robbed, then it attracts the people to do that. If that makes sense.
And
it's like
I think what you're talking. Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is something that very few people talk about, and is so true, right? It's like my conscious mind is saying, I want to be this, I want to be that. My subconscious mind is saying, well, I don't want that. And then I wonder why I don't have it, right? And the same way, like we always think about, well, I want to attract the good things, but we never think that what we're saying is attracting the bad things. And
right. And for me, it was I don't know if you've heard of Esther Hicks and Abraham.
Yeah.
But she wrote a book, We Get What We're Asked For, or Asking It Is Given. I forget now. Asking It Is Given. And she explains in that book how everything we ask for, and that's one of the keystones for me, because I learned Ho'oponopono about the same time I read that book. And I realized when I'm throwing a fit and stomping my feet and being grumpy and angry. I'm asking. And the universe is here, and God or whatever it is like, oh, you like that? Here's an opportunity for more of that. Here you go.
Yeah.
And so when we switch that over, and that's where Ho'oponopono becomes so powerful, because it's telling our unconscious love, humility, compassion, and gratitude. And as that gets stronger within us, then we start to see more things around us, that are of that nature. And so we learn to be able to stay in gratitude. And the best way to get something is to be grateful you have it. Even if you don't, find that gratitude and it'll show up.
Right. Absolutely. And we see that, by the way, below is the URL for the book. We recommend that you head over to Amazon and get it. You don't have to worry about typing it in. It's in the comments. You just click on the comments and it'll go right there. But
also the magic words in the 12 steps is right next to it in Amazon, and it's free all day today because of your doing this.
Oh, I went to the wrong page.
No, that's the right page too.
But but you're right. Like there's the magic words in the 12 steps.
In the 12 steps.
Yeah.
And is it here?
But we learn how to be kinder to ourselves too. I know I'm my own worst critic.
Right.
And it's, I can beat myself up day and night. And this is a more gentle approach to healing the self.
So yeah, that's available free today.
Awesome.
The ebook.
Thank you for doing that. I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
That's very exciting. Well, I'm just going to put it in the comments too, so anyone that wants it can get it, and I'm going to make sure I get it. Oops. There we go.
And I guess while we're doing this, we're starting 12-step, magic words in 12 steps workshops on Halloween, where we're
nice.
I would start with step 1 and then do a 12-week cycle and walk through each step and just, have basically an open forum and talk about the steps and how they apply, whether it's alcohol or anything else, right? And how you can use those principles. So,
and how we can apply them to our daily living.
Right. And so you can get that at thegetpono.com. There's a menu for workshops. Just register for that. And
we'd be happy to have you.
Anybody, everybody.
There's the URL for everybody. And there it is.
Yep.
There we go. All
and again,
right.
That's free today, all day on Amazon. Free download.
Wonderful. Free download. Free Kindle book. Thank you. That's
our
really
pleasure.
You were going to say something, John?
Well, there's we also, the original manuscript for Alcoholics Anonymous is in the public domain. So on the Get Pono site, there's a tab for AA manuscript, which is also a free download.
Oh, that's very cool. AA manuscript.
Yeah. And so you can go there and it's, you have to go through, it takes you through a mailing list, AWeber, but you get your free companion guide. Yeah.
Cool. 1938 is the date on the cover there.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking,
first written.
There was so many amazing personal development growth people writing in the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, eh? Like when you think about
Napoleon Hill for one.
Yeah.
As James Allen, as a man thinketh.
James Allen. Yeah.
It's kind of
There's a bunch. Wow.
Yeah.
That's very,
telling
very
the same thing we're telling today, just in a different way.
Well,
basically.
Do you think humans are really any different today than they were 100 or 500 years ago?
I can't answer that here. We're more spoiled and
we're more spoiled. That's what okay.
Sure. Technology today changed everything.
But I think to your point, the basic function, I guess, or basic characteristics, no. We're
Right.
social beings. So we want to be together. And, you know, in some ways, the internet and that kind of thing is peeling that away from us. We're losing that gradually.
Right.
But that's another digression. Yeah.
You reminded me of, this is a story I probably would never share with anyone other than you two, but my dad, when he was dating my mom, they all lived on farms in southern Saskatchewan. So, you know, the farms were 5 miles apart. So they were, you know, alone most of the time, right? And my uncles on my mom's brothers were, generally speaking, very quiet. And of course, and I can just imagine that they would be, you know, working in the wheat fields and baling hay or whatever, and they kind of knew what the other person should be doing, and they didn't talk much. They just sort of did it. And so my dad's visiting them, and they're sitting around, and he said it was 3 hours. They were sitting in the living room, and hardly a word was spoken. And then finally, the oldest brother gets up and says, well, I guess it's time to get going. And they all get up, except my dad, and they all knew exactly what they were going to be doing, which was go to the pub and have a beer. And my dad was like, when was this decision like made? And my mom goes like, weren't you listening? and I suspect that, you know, when you're that close to the earth and you're that close to nature and everything else, that, you know, our other senses and telepathy is something I'm sure that we all have, but feeling the energy and understanding the energy coming off of everybody was such that they were all kind of like,
it didn't need to be said.
Like to have a beer. What do you guys think? It didn't need to be said, right? Everybody kind of felt it. My dad, being the outsider and not in that, used to being in that energy, was just totally dumbfounded, right? Today we would just get out our iPhones and
I'll meet you there.
I'll meet you there. But so, yeah, I think that there are a lot of those types of differences. Definitely disconnection from the earth and each other is far greater now than it's been ever, I'm sure.
Right.
Yet here you are halfway around the world from me, or a third, and we're communicating, which would never have happened.
Well, yeah. I mean,
100
there's the
years
awesome
ago.
side of it. Yeah.
The benefits.
Yeah.
Yay.
So I'd like to segue in. So basically, everybody, you know, go over to Get Pono and explore the site. It's amazing, and get the books and support Jon and Laura. But I want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about your writing process. How, you know, I think it's obvious why you wanted to write the book, but there's a big difference between I want to write this book, or I'm drawn to writing this book, and actually completing it. So tell us a little bit about your process.
Yeah, it was a process. The first book, The Magic Words, that originally started about 20 years ago and was going to be Freedom from the Bondage of Self. And so I've had 20 years of notes, etc. And I don't know, the couple months before it came out, I got an editor to work through an article I did. And I was talking to her one day and I asked her, can you please set a date for me sometime in January? Because without a date, I'm probably not going to get this done. So she set the date of January 17. I think it was 2019 now, maybe 18. And Christmas Day, I looked up and I thought, oh no, January 7th. I'm still stuck in the childhood where Christmas break was a long time. And now that I'm older, it's not so long. It's only a week or so. And so I kind of panicked and I just said, I got till the 17th to get this book done, which is about 3 weeks. And somehow I just hunkered down and I had all the notes. I just had to reshuffle and put them back in and, tune it up. And I think I was a week late getting the manuscript to her for editing. And then it took another couple of months back and forth with editing and, getting it ready to put it in design and publish and upload to Amazon. The second book that Laura and I wrote together started shortly after that. And it took us about a year We had life changes going on, moving and stuff like that. And I'd get in a space where I was in a hurry to get it out there and get it done. And Laura would kind of pull back the reins and say, I don't know yet. It's not feeling quite right. And so we'd just go back and forth. And the process for us was I'd write a chapter and then she would go edit it and read it and add her 2 cents to it, or nickel's worth, or a couple of chapters, the whole thing probably. But we just I would get the initial one written down and then pass it on to her, and she would read it, as I said, and edit it and give it back. And then we would talk story about it and come to agreements about what changes to keep or not. And it took us about a year overall to get that one to where it is.
Lots of communication.
Yeah.
Right.
Honest, open, loving communication.
And you said earlier about distance. We moved into what we thought was going to be a retreat center in the northern part of the island. So she had her computer like on one end of the house, and it had a separate building for where my office was. I worked from home. And so we were separated, and it worked really well, other than just the weather and a lot of stuff happened. And now we're in a similar situation, but we're in the same building. And she's at one end of the house and I'm at the other end of the house, and we're within earshot if we yell, but we got our own space to do stuff in. And then we come together in one space or the other and compare notes, so to speak. And so she's also working on another book for herself. And
well, Laura, tell us about your book.
It's in the process. I'm writing memoirs and journaling, and it's coming to fruition. It's been in the works for probably 10 years now.
Wow.
But life happens, and I just keep going. And meeting Jon has inspired me to write more. He brought the best out in me.
Nice.
It's been hiding for my whole life, and it's now coming out. And he's been such a blessing, and we work very well together, collaborating on this. Yeah, it's a blessing.
Do you have a word?
Go ahead. I was just going to add that part of the reason for that is that we both practice and understand Ho'oponopono. So if one of us is a little bit grumpy, then the other one will say Ho'oponopono and say, let's talk about that, because it has nothing to do with me. You're mad at me right now, but it has nothing to do with me. And so we'll walk through the process that we explain in the book and come to peace about it. And then we get back to work. And typically it only takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So, it's just, it's a real fine balance point, I guess. And like Laura said, we just learned that open, honest, loving communication is the key.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah.
So Laura, do you have a working title of your book that you're willing to share? If you're not, I totally understand.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Life and Times of Laura Lovgren. There you go.
I don't know. We'll see.
I work with a number of. Go ahead.
Just keep moving forward, and in due time, it'll be there.
Yeah, everything comes in its own time. There's no point in forcing it. I do a number of projects with different clients, and we need to have a title, and I'll just come up with a title, and they'll go, I don't like it. And I said, well, I don't care. It's not the final title. It's just what we're going to call it until we come up with the final title. We have to call it something. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Okay. And then most of the time we change it because it's just off the top of the head, and I don't even know what I'm talking about when I'm coming up with it. And then because whatever we create is always different than what we started out with.
It's already changed like 3 times already. That's why I don't want to say anything.
Well, how many authors have you talked to that thought the book was going to be this title, and by the time they finished it, it was something completely different?
I don't know, but I'm going to make a note to put that as a question I ask every author.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now the Magic Words in the 12 Steps was a title right off the top. I mean, that was a goal that we wanted to do. We played around with the subtitle for quite a bit, and that didn't come to fruition until close to the end. But yeah, the other book, Magic Words, like I said, it started out to be freedom from the bondage of self, and changed half a dozen times probably through that process. But yeah,
And
it seems to be a common
that's the
theme
process.
from other authors I've talked to.
Yeah. Very cool. So do you have any tips for other couples that want to write?
Well, you know, the open, honest communication, and again, the 4 agreements, right? Don't take it personally, because
Right.
we kind of, you know, if I say to Laura that I don't like that, where we come from, we would be in an argument for 2 or 3 days,
Yes.
right? She'd be mad
Yes.
because I was dissing her, and we need to understand. Yeah. So we need to understand that, hey, it's not about taking it personally. And then, you know, no assumptions, of course, and just open,
No
honest, loving
assumptions is
communication.
huge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, honey, we got into this habit every morning. We write, we still do this. We write whatever's going on, and then we have breakfast together and we share where we're coming from. And my suggestion would be, because my husband suggested this for me. No, my fear was so great. Like, I'm not good enough, and who am I to write a book? And, you know, he said, and I got all these thoughts constantly going on in my head, and then I forget them. And he said, carry a pad of paper and a pen wherever you go. Because I'd get these thoughts or ideas, and I was somewhere, and I would never have paper or pen to write it down, and I'd lose it. And it was really like, oh, this was good. This was gonna be good.
That's
and
so
now
frustrating.
I have a pen and paper everywhere I go, and just when I get these inspired or creative thoughts and ideas, or my mind just won't turn off, I'll start writing, and it just pours right into the paper.
Oh, beautiful. And I love that you use a pen and paper. I love writing with a pen and paper. I don't I don't do it as much. I'm on my keyboard too much, but it's just, there's just something about that it adds authenticity somehow.
Yeah, it does. Well, and to me, we release a lot of stuff when we do that. I journaled for, I don't know, 20 years every morning, and pen and paper. And I realized that I can run it around in my head forever and never get a resolution. But as soon as I put it on a piece of paper, it's like, oh, now it's more real. And
it's relief.
Right.
And releases. But I also I want to reiterate what Laura said about how we share every morning, you know, and we kind of go through how you feeling physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And we just talk story with each other about how we're feeling, and we'd be completely open and honest, you know, from our hearts, if you will. And so we start our day that way, and we've kind of fallen in since doing the book and starting that. That's become I don't want to say a habit. It's more of a lifestyle. That's just how we start our day now. And so it doesn't matter if we go different directions during the day. We started out in the connected space.
That's beautiful.
And when we get home, and that's kind of, I think that helped us resolve any conflicts we had while we were writing the book, because we would talk about them in the morning and get clarity on, no, I wasn't saying that to push one of your buttons or trip your trigger. That's what I felt about it. And if you want to take it on, go ahead and have fun with that. But it's really not yours.
That's beautiful. And you're short-circuiting the slow withdrawal of emotional bank accounts, right? Like, you know, there's nothing building up that's going to take 5 years to explode.
And that's, you know, that's a lot of what happens is sometimes we'll get in an argument with your spouse or loved one. And it's like, dude, I was way more angry than that situation would lead me to think, right? But what happens is we have all those hidden angers and fears that are stuffed in there for so long. When we open that valve, sometimes we can't shut it off. And that's where Ho'oponopono
Yeah.
is so powerful, because if you can
Yeah.
have the wherewithal to just take a couple breaths and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. You can come down into a place of responding rather than reacting.
Yeah.
So it won't
I think that's
explode.
key.
Yeah.
And,
And doing the meeting, sharing every morning, we don't accumulate that way.
right.
We know what's going on with each other every day. So,
Well, and now you got me thinking, like, how many couples are terrified of doing what you're doing? I'm not going to tell you that.
Terrifying.
I'm never
I
going to
was one
share
of
with
them.
you how I'm really feeling. Are you crazy? Why
yeah,
would I do? You know, my dad beat me when a couple times
Exactly.
I tried that. I'm not going to do that. I learned my lesson, right?
yeah.
And then it comes
And-
out. I mean, it either comes out positively and grows the relationship, or it comes out negatively and cuts it down.
Well, we say it comes out sideways.
Mhm.
And, you know, when we've done that for quite a while, but we know each other so well now that we can just tell in a minute. It's like, you know what, I know something's going on. Let's let's talk story for a little bit, because, you know, I'm starting to take something personally because of your behavior. And I know it's
Right.
not mine, but you're not speaking. So let's talk about it. And it goes both ways. You know, I'm a little baby, and I'm high maintenance, I'm finding out. Never knew. So, you know, it's like, okay, what are you whining about now? Let's fix it.
Let's fix it.
He's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming on. I really have enjoyed our time together. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Head over to Get Pono and check out the books, check out the free workshop, and start creating. Really, what you're talking about is creating a wonderful life full of love and joy. Right?
Yep. And for writers, when people ask me, I say, just write. We got a friend that's talking about his Vietnam experience, and it's just put it on paper.
Just keep
Worry about the
writing.
book later, but write. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Well,
Scott. This was an awesome opportunity, and
Mahalo.
really enjoyed our
Mahalo.
time with you.
Awesome. All right. So we've come to the end of our time together, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.